Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I look at the 1995 Pinnacle hockey set. In 1995, Pinnacle had to kind of reestablish itself because they had started off for 3 years making a really simplistic and elegant card. The whole design concept that they had just carried so well, and even by 1993, when the card was losing some of its elegant strengths, it still had a clean look to it that worked with the previous two sets. And then in 1994, they lost their mind and made a card set it didn't carry any of the spirit of the releases in the previous years. And so Pinnacle needed to kind of figure out exactly what they were and hopefully reestablish some of what they had started out as. And so 1995 was the year when they got to do that. And in baseball, they didn't really recover very much, but in football, they certainly did. And for the hockey release, we got to see a look that didn't quite have the same elegance and cleanliness of the football release, but still, as you can see, this card does have a very good, very effective look to it that brings back a certain amount of elegance, even though it looks wildly different by having almost no border. The key to the design is that the blue box down at the bottom that then fades up into the image. Inside of that, they have a gold foil hockey stick just to make sure that you didn't pick up on what sport you're looking at by the picture. And then you have a floating logo for Pinnacle up in the corner. And that's it. Other than that, it's all about how the image comes across. And they did do a good job with the images. The back is also very simplistic, where they used the same design they'd used in football with another color box that fades over from one side to the other. Not a lot going on with it. They were just trying to pull everything back to basics, and that's exactly what the 1995 Pinnacle design ended up being. But really, we weren't collecting Pinnacle for the cards themselves. That was a 1991 through 1993 affair. By 1994, they were moving into the world of parallels, and so for 1995, that's exactly what we were expecting. Not a one per pack parallel. The trophy collection cards, which were the lower tier, were still uncommon in packs, but they were well worth the wait, and we tried to collect these sets as best we could. The whole design for it is that the entire surface of the card is now covered in Dufex. And in fact, for the background, they have a big circular pattern emanating out from the Pinnacle logo. And then, of course, the player is etched right in there with Dufex with his own texturing that makes this card, while a little bit clinical because of all those circles, other than that, really a great, vibrant, strong card that was a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun to experience as a card collector, and obviously is a lot of fun to collect a set if you can pull that off. But they also had another parallel, which was carried over from 1994, which was their artist proof cards. But unlike in 1994, where the artist proof cards were their own design, which wasn't exactly all that effective, in 1995 they took the trophy cards and they basically just made a duplicate version of that, where down the bottom right corner they have a little sash. The whole corner is treated a bit differently, and then they have an artist proof logo medallion inside of that. And so that is the design approach that they used for the artist proof cards, which was wonderful because even though it wasn't necessarily a grand celebration, it was a distinct enough look on an amazing card to make the card look special. And personally, I think it's awesome. Now, the card set doesn't have anything else going on with it. The rookie cards are not changed in any way. The checklist cards don't have images on the front the way they've done it in football, but also the card set feels a little bit empty because, well, it was actually designed to be a Series 1 and then a Series 2, but they never got around to the Series 2. So that means there are a few players that are missing, but there are also subsets. They didn't bother to do that because they had a second series that they could work with, and so that means that this card set is very, very basic. The veterans and the rookies all run together. They have some checklists that aren't really worth much of a note. So yeah, we're basically left with the inserts, but thankfully there are a number of really, really good inserts to be able to follow, so we're perfectly fine. And the first of those inserts is a really interesting card, which is Clear Shots. This is an acetate card where on one side, for basically a square size of the card, they have a portrait of the player with the acetate window behind, but the other portion has a really great radial pattern with holofoil that allows for an interesting effect that makes this card quite lively and quite distinct. To a certain extent, this card is fairly memorable because of it, even though it's just kind of a feature on the card. Other than that, it really is a card that works well at being a lot of fun with different things they could do with technology here in 1995. Now the second set is called First Strike. And this is a card that isn't really Dufex. It's more of an etched background, which is, so there's not a lot to play around with on the card, but that's not the key to the card. The key to the card is the incredibly bold, powerful team color that really dominates the entire card. It makes these cards stand out in any display case and really in any card collection. That's what's great about this card, is it is absolutely unabashed, and just that light amount of etched surface, the texturing on the surface, is enough to bring enough liveliness to make this card really pretty fun. Now the third insert set is, this one's kind of interesting. It's called Full Contact. These cards were very common in jumbo packs, so they're not rare basically at all. They have a Dufex surface for the outer portion of the image, and then there's a circle in the middle with a normal image inside of that I guess clarifies the impact of the player and whoever the player is up against, which means that this is a card that is kind of backwards from the way that you would normally expect for a card to work, which is interesting, although it's not as gripping as other cards because it's got two ideas that aren't really well intended to go together. It's not a problem, it's just it's different. The next insert set is Global Greats, and this is a card that could easily be mistaken for being a parallel because the design is literally the same design as the veteran cards in the set, although the number is not. So it's not just that gold medallion on the card that's different, and so it is distinct enough that you're not going to be too confused by it, but regardless, it is a card that carries the same design even though it's an insert in those same packs. Now, the next insert set is the great, grand, wonderful Pinnacle series of inserts called Masks. And Masks is just awesome. I mean, this is something they've been doing from, I think the 1992 set was the first year they did it. And just having these really cool, well, okay, I need to say something here, which is, I find it funny that they're called masks because at this point they're just helmets. But masks obviously is the traditional name because it's what they started out as. But it's the helmet that is really what we're interested in. And having that Dufex finish on the card, bringing everything to life in such a fascinating way. Every year they release these cards, and every year it was such an awesome part of the set, if not the key to collecting the set. Really do love these cards. Now the last insert set is called Roaring Twenties, and this is a card set that, well, you're going to have to take my word for it, that's the name, because you're hard-pressed to find Roaring Twenties written anywhere, and really you're hard-pressed to find any evidence that this was a card set in packs with Pinnacle because it doesn't look like it really fits. It looks like a special release card. These are a bunch of young stars, and the entire surface is not quite Dufex. I think micro etching is what they refer to it as, but it is still a very bold, well, it's a very, very, very bold card, but it is part of the Pinnacle pack releases. And I want to distinguish that because while that is everything that they did for the Pinnacle packs, whether domestic or foreign, there's one other thing they did with Pinnacle in 1995 that's worth noting, which is that they did a set of promo cards at FanFest. And this is something they would continue doing. So the 1995 design is like this. It's got that big gold foil patch down at the bottom. And there is one notable card in the set, which is that there is essentially an SP card at the end. And the SP card contains two players, which is Travis Lee and Bobby Orr. Now, Travis Lee was not a pro player, but he got injured, and it was something that Pinnacle wanted to honor. So they made this special SP card, which is not really part of the set of FanFest. So if you do try to collect the set, the SP card is considered an addition to it. It's not considered a part of it. But that brings the entire story of 1995 Pinnacle to a close. Now, in 1996, they would make a major change because Score Pinnacle was going through some changes in 1996, and especially in 1997. So they would have a very different look, which I'm going to look at separately than this. But at least in 1995, they were able to get back to kind of the spirit of the way Pinnacle had started. And boy, they had some great insert sets as well. So that was really wonderful about this set. So yeah, like I said, I'll look at 1996 and 1997 separately. I have already done all the sets leading up to this in case you haven't seen them. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. And thank you very much for watching.